My Lords, I should perhaps begin by noting my position as the co-chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group in Hong Kong. The Noble Lord Fox, in opening this committee session, said most of the amendments are seeking to better describe national security. The Noble Lady Baroness Hayter said, without a definition, the bill is missing a vital ingredient. I think it would indeed be interesting if, as the Noble Baroness McIntosh of Pickering said, we were continue to use the EU definition. My personal position is that we should keep as close to the EU as possible, but that hasn't seemed to be the government's. Now, the Noble Lord Fox noted how successive governments of different hues have taken a hands-off approach to mergers and acquisitions, both those involving national and international actors. We've had, to an extent matched by few other countries in the world, a robber baron's welcome sign-out in the process of selling off the family silver in a veritable orgy of privatisation and financialisation that has clearly had an impact on public order and national security. But I won't let rip with a second reading speech, something the Noble Lady Baroness Noakes expressed concern about. But I will point out that have regard to clauses are at the very core of democracy. If the government is taking new powers or extending existing powers, for there to be democratic oversight, there surely needs to be an outline of how those powers are to be used, a legal framework that should a government go off the rails, it can be held to account against. That doesn't reflect, as the Noble Baroness Lady Noak just said, an activist judiciary. Rather, it's one that's doing its job, fulfilling its constitutional role. We know that the government does not like to have such oversight, both democratic and legal, but it's surely the responsibility of this committee to attempt to insist on it, surely on nothing more than in national security, the degree to which it has not been secured by previous governments, having been only exposed by the COVID-19 pandemic and clearly imminently threatened by the climate emergency. I'll address some of those national security concerns in my Amendment 93, to which we'll get to later, but I speak now particularly on Amendment 13 in the name of the Noble Lady Baroness Thornton, and I thank her for her clearly careful, detailed work on it. I won't address all the elements, but I want to focus on a couple of those in Amendment 13, particularly B4, enabling a hostile actor to corrupt processes or systems. Now, there is grave concern about the impact of big money on our quasi-democratic processes, particularly in the age of social media. These are so well known, I don't think I need to expound on them at length. But I will point to the fact that the 2010 National Security Strategy was already referring to such concerns, and they've obviously greatly grown since. We have, even in our conventional media, a quite astonishing degree of concentration of media ownership, often foreign or offshore media ownership. That surely needs to be acknowledged as a national security concern. And I note the comments by the Noble Lady Baroness Thornton of how Amendment 2 seeks to address such issues. I also point to Clause F of Amendment 13, the likely impact of the trigger event on the United Kingdom's international interests and obligations, including compliance with legislation on modern slavery and compliance with the UN Genocide Convention. Now, this has obviously been of great concern to your Lordship's House if we reflect on the debate around the trade bill, and these are surely of concern to national security. They're not just moral issues, but of great effect to our national security. A stable world, one in which no one is subject to genocide or held in slavery, is a world that is far more secure for every citizen of the UK and the nation as a whole. And then I come to Clause G, organised crime, money laundering and tax evasion. The security of the funding for schools, hospital, roads, police and all of the other services on which we relies on companies in our society paying their taxes. And when it comes to money laundering, we've seen in many aspects of our society and internationally the disastrous impact of dirty money, something that in some societies around the world have led to almost or total state breakdown. So looking overall at having such a set of definitions, as many other noble lords have said, is actually of being of help to the government, giving the relevant minister a checklist and a list against which the minister's decisions can be checked. Without such a list, providing an explanation against its clauses, how can a minister avoid accusations of corruptions or malfeasance, or simple neglect of duty. I'll also briefly note that I'm pleased to attach my name to the Noble Baroness Lady Thornton's Amendment 83, also signed by the Noble Lady Baroness Northover, which refers to the Integrated Defence Review. It's a great pity that we're forced to debate this bill without that. It's a situation we find ourselves in so many areas of government work, and the reasons for ensuring that we have a tight interlinking between the review and this bill, I think, have been very clearly outlined by the Noble Lady Baroness Northover, so I won't go further into that. Thank you, my lords.